ring and pick it up, yellow, yellow. Ain't talking bitch, I be like, hell no, hell no. Ain't talking bitch, I be like, hell no. Bounce on the track, I'm like jello. He's a young boy, pretty one, a nice fellow. Now I deploy, you're enough, that's my medal. Ain't no decoy, in my way you get elbow. And I ain't talking macaroni, I'm talking mabaloni. Been around here, seen a lot of phonies. Do a dance, maybe do the Macarena. Okay, okay, catch up on me, yeah, catch up on me, yeah, catch up on me. Skirty, skirt, skirt, can I hold me? Yeah, like a missile, I am honing. My craft, no Mac, I am owning. I'ma get some bits, of course. I'ma get your bitch, of course. Never gave no shits, of course. Put some ice on my wrist, of course. Don't wanna hear you talk cause I'm bored. Boy, you're gonna make me snore, yeah. I'ma walk out that door. I'ma go hit record and then I hop on the track, I'm like, hello. Phone ring and pick it up, yellow, yellow. Ain't talking bitch, I be like, hell no, hell no. Ain't talking bitch, I be like, hell no. Bounce on the track, I'm like jello. He's a young boy, pretty one, a nice fellow. Now I deploy, you're enough, that's my medal. Ain't no decoy, in my way you get elbow. Yeah, ooh, I'll get dunked. I go stupid, yeah, I go dumb. His name Young Vin, he got the funk. My name Big Simp, I'm on the run. I'm on the run, I'm on the run. Yeah, and don't forget it, I'm on my way, okay, and I'm gonna win it. Cause losing ain't an option, for me it's forbidden. Yeah, yeah. No, it is not. Try to rewrite the plot script. Me not winning up, me not grinning up. That would be a plot twist. I think you should eat a Twix. Usually you not like this. Usually you bop like this. Yeah, usually I ride like this. Up on the track, I'm like, hello. Phone ring and pick it up, yellow, yellow. Ain't talking bitch, I be like, hell no, hell no. Ain't talking bitch, I be like, hell no. Bounce on the track, I'm like jello. He's a young boy, pretty one, a nice fellow. Now I deploy, you're enough, that's my medal. Ain't no decoy, in my way you get elbow. On the beat, bitch. Let me see you throw it right back. Let me see you throwing some stacks. Let me see you running through rags. Let me see you running through rags. Let me see you rocking that raft. I'ma just call you right back. I'ma just call you right back. I'ma just call you right back. Started from the bottom, now we right here, now we're gonna go over there, then we're gonna go over there, very scary like Blair, watch me tear off of my mare, yeah, never really care, yeah, a lot of people stare, yeah. Not sure what they're looking at, I know it's them that I be looking past, why? Notice them when they be looking bad, I notice when the beat is cooking mad vibes, come and join me and my tribe, trying to get the most out of life, if we can't get it, we try, but we finna get it, I lie, yeah, not trying to hit it like mines, no, and I know this world is mine, so I'ma go get it, yeah, and I won't quit it, yeah, you can tell by the way I walk with it, yeah, you can tell by the way I talk with it, yeah, you can tell by the way I walk with it, yeah, you can tell by the, hold up, wait, I'm gonna smoke me a dub, yeah, and then I'm gonna go into the club, yeah, then I'm gonna flick my wrist, hold up, I'm gonna do my dance like this, okay, I'm gonna kill them all, John Wick, yeah, I'm gonna do one more rinse, yeah, I'm gonna go get it, and I won't quit it, yeah, let me see you throw it right back, let me see you throwing some stacks, let me see you running through rags, let me see you running through rags, let me see you rocking that raft, I'ma just call you right back, I'ma just call you right back, I'ma just call you right back, let me see you throw it right back, let me see you throwing some stacks, let me see you running through rags, let me see you running through rags, let me see you rocking that raft, I'ma just call you right back, I'ma just call you right back, I'ma just call you right back.
What's up, everybody? How's it going? I'm glad my mic wasn't muted for once. I really thought it was right after I said that. I got a couple decks here. I built two of the 3v3 team format decks. Both ended up being like dual symbol, like 2-symbol decks, which is pretty cool. The first one is Life Chaos, and the second one is Good Earth. I figured it's probably not super likely to actually get an opponent, to actually get somebody who has a 3v3 deck built with like 2 hours of notice. So I get that. But if somebody does want to play, I do have two decks that I'll kind of do, I guess, like a quick little deck profile for. And then if this just becomes like a short 1 hour upload as like a deck profile thing, like that's totally fine too. So, in fact, let me stretch this a bit to make it better suited for a deck profile. The app will let me do that. That works. Here we go. that better? That's probably better, right? So first up, I'm calling it Team You Go Girl. Because it's just three Chaos Life women. I thought about calling it You Mo Girl for momentum, because that is going to be clearly the theme of the deck, but I don't think people would get it, and it sounds weird. Sounds like you're telling them to mow the lawn. Um, so that being said, it's a pretty big deck. It's 89 cards. I do think that cycling is going to happen pretty frequently in the 3v3 format, which is why they changed the rules so that you only lose 2 health, which I really like because it does make taking like just your standard deck and finding 3 characters that share a symbol with it or share, enough symbols, I guess, because like I said, I got a decent amount of attuned stuff, but you're pretty much limited to like 2 symbols. So, um, the fact that cycling doesn't remove 10 cards means that you're more likely to be able to just take a regular normal sized deck and play with it. So that's pretty cool. But because we're building this deck specifically for the 3v3 format, this one is really big. The next one is not, and I'll talk about that. But this one is 89 cards for 2 reasons. One, we need our discard pile, and 2, these are pretty slow characters to get off the ground. So the 3 characters are Annie Leonhardt, the 722. Oh, whoops! Yeah, no. Okay, yeah. So this is Annie Leonhardt. Um, you can spend momentum to ramp, which is a really nice use of momentum. And then if you have 9 or more foundations, you can transform Annie. And then once you transform, you can search your deck for 1 backup. Oh, it's a backup Titan card. Do I have a Titan backup? Oh, I do. I have Titans Under Oars. Okay. And Rank of Titans. Okay, yeah. I was like, for a second, I thought it was any backup because I was talking about how we'd go get Theo or Onyakapom. He switched it up. It should say Titan backup to be, I don't know, at least more sensible to my English. Anyways, um, yeah. Difficulty 6 or less, and you build it. Then you can lose a health. You can try to block with a backup from your stage. Then you can commit a foundation for 2 and 2. This is probably going to be the middle character most of the time. The character we want to start out with is Jester Lavore, Prankster Priestess. And that's because Jester has the ability, once per turn, commit a foundation, your rival spends a momentum, and then both players get a momentum. You want to be stockpiling momentum. Jester also has 31 starting health, which is pretty high. And Jester can spend a momentum to add a spell card from your discard pile to your hand. So you get Wound Restore to heal yourself a bunch. Go get the correct block zone. Inspiring Song is a really strong foundation in general. And then if you have the opportunity to, Shadow Sorcery and Harness Undeath are both spell attacks that are +1 high block. I thought about putting Gunflame Feint in here, but I can't remember if it was fire attuned or if it also had chaos. But I'm pretty sure it came up when I looked at chaos. So I thought about putting that in here as another spell, but it didn't seem like super impactful. Keep in mind that one it has tension, which is probably like the big reason. Like you can spend a momentum and then you'll get it right back as a Roman cancel token. But I decided not to include it. And then probably the strongest character here is Sasha Blouse, Food Fanatic. I think it's Sasha 2. Yeah, there's only 2. So Sasha can commit. You add a card with difficulty 1 from your stage to your momentum. Draw a card. If the card you added was an asset, you can draw 2 cards. So we've got all the Sasha assets for that. And then once you've stockpiled a bunch of momentum, hopefully from your first 2 characters, you have Tenacious, discard a card. This attack gets +X speed or +X damage. X equals your momentum. So, in the early game, you want to stockpile momentum with Jester. And then when you get reset down to 8 foundations, hopefully you've built a bigger stage than 8 cards in the stage. But hopefully when you get set back down to 8, you have 8 foundations and you have at least 1 momentum. And then Annie can immediately spend a momentum to transform. Then you'll go get a backup. And then when you have that backup will be able to pay for the Harness Undeath Blitz to give it Echo. And then on top of that, Annie can utilize your backups in a good way. And I didn't want every character to be super tied to using momentum, and he just needs one, right? And he just needs And on top of that, Annie can auto proc a harness on death after this attack deals damage by making it a throw. So harness on death is not a powerful attack, so we can give it throw. When it deals damage, we'll get to do the response to burn our rival for whatever backups are in discard piles, which is why we want the deck to be really big. We want the deck to be big because that means that we have a discard pile for longer. Our discard pile can be bigger, and that means it can have more backups in it. So Annie does a good job of spending the momentum that Jester can get to transform, and then doesn't really need any more of it. And the non-powerful attack getting throw is also a way to generate momentum, right? If the attack deals damage, stuff like that. You don't have to transform immediately. If you have the harness on death play, maybe you want to do that first. Notably, Annie can't do the enhanced commit and the spend of momentum to transform, which is pretty rough and probably why this character really didn't see play out of like really goofy rogue, local strategies. But I really like the way that she works with harness on death. And it's also, if you have damage pump, the front side with dust attack can be pretty nasty. I don't think I can actually pump that much damage now that I think about it. You'd have to have like a bunch of soups because this deck is not about pumping damage numbers. Yeah, you'd pretty much have to have all 4 soups out. So probably not realistic. But is Rank of Titans damage? Okay, yeah. So Rank of Titans, CEO, and soup can maybe get dust attack to 9. And then you can make dust attack hit for 5. But the other big one is Spirit Gun Mega. So Spirit Gun Mega is a powerful attack, so you cannot do the Annie enhanced commit with it. Keep that in mind. It looks really good. You would want, to get the if it deals damage, draw 2 cards. But this one is a powerful attack, so you cannot do that. However, if your rival ever seals this attack, feel free to make it a 7 damage throw. But keep that in mind. I think that's the only powerful, right? This one's EX, yeah. So that's the only powerful attack in the deck, but I like it enough. And this deck is kind of all about finding harness on death. And so the other way that we can do that is Shadow Sorcery is a spell. And, Spirit Gun Mega, if it wasn't clear, picks it. Right? You can discard a card, go get harness for the win. But Shadow Sorcery is kind of like our ability to bank Jester's Tutor for harness on death for the other characters. It's going to make our rivals attack this backup a lot, which is kind of unfortunate, but that's better than them attacking us. And so with Jester, if the game goes long and Jester's what we call a point character, there's point, center, and anchor, basically. Or carry. People have started to use carry, but I think that's a league term. So if Jester can bank you a bunch of momentum, and you can spend 1 to pick up Shadow Sorcery. When you play the Shadow Sorcery and it shifts down, and then Jester gets eliminated, this will allow Annie or Sasha to pick up Harness on Death, which I think is really cool. I think it's like a cool function of Jester's ability to grab spell cards. So keep that in mind, that that's basically our way to transfer the Jester ability over to the other 2 characters. Rejuvenating Smash is in here because it's just a really strong life card, and it does actually generate a momentum. Sasha discards a card from hand, so it works really, really well with Sasha. It allows us to play number 7 Pro Hero for additional value, basically. There's one other way I thought meeting Hanji is also like life symbols in a weird place for card draw. Because we are a backup deck, meeting Hanji becomes one of the best card draw abilities in the game. Discard a card to draw 3 is super duper strong. If we're now getting momentum for doing that, that's really cool too. So meeting Hanji, number 7 Pro Hero are the ways that non-Sasha characters for this deck will proc the Rejuvenating Smash. And when you've got, the draw 2 from Rejuve, you should pretty much always have a backup in hand to discard to meeting Hanji. So you will probably like 90% of the time always plus off this card, which makes it much, much better. I have played this card with no backups just because it's the only way to filter on the symbols that I was on. And it was the only way to go from 0 cards to 2 cards, right? Or if you have 1 card and it's not a backup, you still draw 2. So pretty powerful stuff. Dust Attack is here because I wanted the Roman Cancel token. I felt like that was really strong, especially if my combat phase is going to be forcibly ended by defeating a rival character. You know, having that damage reduction ability in my momentum seemed really, really good. The fact that pretty much every time I do this, I should have 2 momentum, right? Every time I play Dust Attack, I should get the tension, Roman Cancel. I should get a momentum from Sasha. I should get a momentum from Jester, or it should be a throw with Annie. And if Annie's on the backside, it's a 5 low for 7, you know? So that's pretty good, I think. Um, and so Dust Attack did make it in here, but I think it might be the weakest attack. So if you want to play like Gunflame Feint in this spot to still get the Roman Cancel, I think that's fine, but it's another high attack or high block spell. And we have a lot of +1 high block spell cards. So the fact that we have 18 high blocks and 21 lows seems like you wouldn't want the low block. However, our ability to get really good high blocks, I feel like makes it so I want to err on the side of caution towards having more lows. And of course, the Roman Cancel token can. Going on to the assets, we got Gold Tips Imperial. This is, of course, a 1 difficulty asset for Sasha. It makes poking with Jester even better. If Jester plays an attack, you get a momentum. If it deals, you get a second. If it doesn't deal, now with Gold Tips, you get a second. When you block with it, it builds. So you can kind of trick your opponents, you know, if they don't think you'll get to draw 2 with Sasha. You know, this acts as like a little bit of a hand trap, I guess, but it's added versatility. And of course, clearing your card pool is really good. Potato is in here because it's a one difficulty asset. You can build it from the card pool, which is cool. Playing Potato into Rejuve on a 6, and then building the Potato so that you like gain 3, you drew 2, probably committed 1, but now you have a damage reduction cancel, which Roman Cancel, you know, is a damage reduction ability when your rival does the one on your turn. So I feel like having that as a cancel is really good, but it also has like some really, really sneaky nice plays you can do. I was a little sad I didn't really find any synergies for when you gain health that I really liked, but Potato was something I was looking forward to triggering that. I just didn't really find it. Like, there's nothing that says after you gain health, you know, do something cool. Like, Blessed Metal almost made it in here, but that's neither here nor there. Soup is in here because it's a Sasha card. The reality of it, it's a Sasha card. It's gain 1 health for anyone else. Similar to Gold Tips Imperial, it's an asset I can block with and build too. So we have a pretty sneaky, strong way to play defense. You know, blocking with some of these cards that clear the card pool. Airships and always one of. Filled with Doubt's a strong, you know, infinity piece. Wound Restore is here because Jester can grab it. And then also, if you make a non-powerful attack a throw, Annie can proc the lose 4. So while Annie should always be ready, you know, should always be like primed to transform immediately, don't forget that the enhanced commit has a lot of really nice synergies here. Play Harness on Death, you make it a throw, you play Wound Restore on top of it. When it hits your rival, they're going to lose 2 for the damage, 4 for the burn, plus 1 for every backup you have. And Wound Restore is an additional Harness Undeath gain trigger. So for those who don't know, in case you've never played Harness Undeath or don't understand the sequencing here, the way you can do it is when your rival takes the damage, it opens up 2 response windows. It opens up after your rival loses health, gain 1 health, and it opens up response, lose 2 health, your rival burns, you know, your rival loses health for backups. So if you pay the 2 health, that's a second window for the response card pool after your rival loses 1 health. So you gain 2 from Harness dealing damage. So you get 1 for dealing damage and 1 for burning them, and it basically pays for itself. But now if you have the Wound Restore burn, you're actually getting +1. And of course, if you play multiple Harness Undeath and don't Echo to flip them, which will probably be pretty rare in this deck, but it can happen, those of course can stack as well. So there's some really, really nice ways to kind of claw your way back into the game. And also don't forget that you can block with this and do the response as well. So there's not a ton of decks that are paying health unless they're playing like dual needle lunge, which almost made it in this deck. It was really close. Like, if it wasn't, going even more into low blocks might have been rough, but like Dust Attack could also be dual needle lunge. You didn't care about the roaming cancel token. Same block zone, same stats basically, but less progressive for fast momentum, and you're paying health that you can gain back. I just am tired of seeing dual needle lunge. Like that's just the truth. I feel like I recommend it in every deck on Symbol, and I'm just tired of playing it and seeing it. So you can play it though instead of any of these attacks, really, even Riju Smash, and it's probably just fine. The backups here are mostly to fuel Harness Undeath. That's why we have the 10 Jaeger's follower. But these characters do have some synergies with milling yourself. Annie not so much, but uh, Sasha. Oh well, I guess it's mostly just Jester. But Jester, seeing the spells in the discard pile. But Sasha is also, um, you can scope your draw is really important, I think, and this is something that I think is something we see in like draw one per turn games a lot, and something we don't value a whole lot in universes. But when your character can draw cards, having this like fake surveil, look at the top cards, add it to the discard pile, that helps you scope out your draws too. So it definitely has some help with Sasha, and Sasha can. Sorry, there's people racing outside. Sasha can add Jaeger's followers to momentum, and I felt like that was pretty solid. Like if you didn't want to debuild a foundation and you don't have an asset to draw two cards, looking at the top card of your deck to scope out your next check or to scope out your draw, right? In this instance, and then deciding, okay, well, I want to draw that card and tucking the Jaegers into momentum probably feels pretty good. I haven't done it yet, so I don't know, but I felt like that was a strong synergy to include. Rank of Titans is just the stat I wanted, and again, the block zone I kind of wanted from the Titan backups. You can definitely play the high block one that gives you +2 speed as well. This deck can probably just add those, and like it's fine to pad the size of this deck because of our ability to tutor our win condition and our win condition wanting to have a big discard pile. Theo Magath is something that I don't want to really use, but this guy is so strong when you combine him with stuff like Refreshing Blend, or you combine him with Jester's Enhance to like start curating your next turn. If you discard a momentum to pick up Wound Restore and then you -2 damage this attack, and then your rival's like, well, if I play another attack, they're gonna gain 5 and have the opportunity to -2 again. So you can kind of ward your opponent off. You can dissuade them from attacking you. I think that that's really good. Of course, you can also spend momentum on Spirit Gun Mega's powerful, EX from Rejuvenating Smash. It won't really work when you Echo, unfortunately, because you play the Echo during the attack that's already resolving. But you know, can't have everything in life. But there's some nice ways to spend momentum here. Spend one momentum, unseal one card in your stage. You can play that without having any sealed cards. So if you're just like in a weird spot, and you just need damage from Theo and this card's in your stage, it turns into powerful too on everything. So don't underestimate that. You might cancel something with Incredible Display just to get +2 or -2 damage. So stuff like that is something to always be aware of. Onyakopon's just like a super solid one of, all these guys are low blocks for some reason, but it's neither here nor there. Titans under orders. I knew I needed more backups for meeting Hanji and Harness Undeath, and it's a Titan that you can build with Annie, so that's really good. Other than that, most of the foundations are pretty normal, pretty solid. Life has great zeros, and we've got a big deck here, so I could include a bunch of them. Number 7 Pro Hero discards and draws, so it works with Rejuve. We actually want to be discarding to draw cards in this deck. Pilfered Provisions, it does something when you discard it. It's got another one of the gain health, look at the top card of your deck type things. So you can use that to work with the Jaeger Swallowers to scope things out. This might be one of the weakest cards in the deck overall, but I wanted to play some Sasha cards in here, like with the potato and stuff. And it's also one of my favorite arts. It's one of my favorite panels. It's so funny to me that she's like, yeah, I stole some meat. And she usually doesn't want to share. So like the fact that she would be telling other people like is so funny. But she's like not sharing. She's just telling you that she stole some meat. She's gonna eat it. I think she does share in the manga, but still, there's times where they're like literally fighting her over it. Aspiring Songs just solid staple card. Refreshing Blend is how we survive and go through like super late gamey turns. You get Refreshing Blend with Theo out, -4 damage per momentum. Like you feel pretty much unstoppable. Your opponent has to find an answer to the Refreshing Blend, or else they pretty much can't kill you from full, at least. Magic Alarm is our low block spell. I think the speed reduction on it's really, really good, but you're probably going to whiff on this a decent amount of the time. But if it ever dissuades your rival from playing attack, that's insane for a 2/5 flip. So I would definitely try to trigger these almost every turn. There's almost no reason not to just rip it off and, yeah, protect yourself. Break the Spell, we kind of already talked about. There's just a lot of ceiling going on in the format, and this also has a little weird stun hate effect, so it's not bad. Normalcy is a staple, and we already talked about Hanji. So that's the deck. Typically, you're going to want to start Jester, and then I believe go Annie, and kind of feel things out, trying to figure out, if your opponent has throw hate, what kind of tech they have. Use the enhanced commit to blow through all of their Mikasa defeats the female titans and stuff like that. And then Sasha, I think, is a super good anchor for this deck, if only because, well, for one, you want to stack up the big, plus speed or plus damage from having tons of momentum. But also you will more consistently have the one difficulty assets to really make Sasha shine later on in the game. However, I do think you can mix and match these all together. So, for example, if you start with Annie, Annie has a really good transformation if things do go long, so your opponent's probably going to want to be a little bit aggressive. But having the opening 7 hand size for better builds early, and having the ability to spend momentum to ramp foundations is something that the other decks can really like make up for, because Jester and Sasha can make their own momentum, right? They're not like super dependent on starting with a bunch. So Annie kind of using your other momentum abilities and using, the poke damage you get early to set the pace and get, potentially more build ramp for the other characters is super valid. But she's probably the weakest point character. I would probably play her second or third pretty much every time. As a third, you almost certainly want to be doing the harness undeath strategy rather than transforming her, I would say. But as a second character, coming in with like both players at like 7 to 8 foundations, you do the immediate spend of momentum and transform, and now you can start committing cards to get +2/+2 in like a mid-range part of the game. Super duper duper strong. If you ever transform, like if you ever get way ahead of your opponent and transform while they're on a smaller stage, like obviously that's even better. But for the most part, she's here to make Harness Undeath into a throw, I would say, is probably the main thing. And then the other two characters, they can have slightly fraudulent offenses. Sasha is kind of relying on getting a speed or damage bonus and then using EX or powerful, right? So Annie just kind of has more of a generic value-based offense from having a decent sized stage and playing a string of otherwise regular attacks. Sasha can work as a first because you do get the card draw, and she does still have the 30 health, so she's not way less tanky than Jester. The one thing about starting with Jester is you're way less likely to find the wound restores early and to be that 50 plus health character that people kind of talk about. That is not as reliable if you start as Jester. So starting as Sasha can be pretty useful, I think. But you really, really, really want to see the assets. That's why I think starting with, that's why I think having Sasha as the uh, anchor makes the most sense, just because you will have the most opportunities to draw two cards from the Sasha enhance. But early on, if you get the early ramp, her stats can be super hard to deal with. She has a really solid game plan with that extra draw too, because you might be building a card that you otherwise built quote unquote for free, like a Gold Tips Imperial, or something that you built really fast, like a soup, or even potato. These are both assets that fast build themselves. So you can kind of jump ahead of your opponent, but I would also say that while Sasha is probably better at starting than Annie, um, it would suck really bad to it would suck really bad to have a ton of momentum late in the game, but you started with Sasha. So if you're gonna start with Sasha in the point spot, you're almost certainly gonna be mulliganing for one of these one difficulty assets, which I think is probably like the toughest thing. And then you're probably gonna have to rely on actually like tutoring momentum from like tension or rejuve gets you a momentum every time in this deck. But you're a little strapped. I do think it's better to start Sasha than Annie most of the time. But she's just very generic as far as like being an aggressive six hand. And then Jester is probably the worst in the middle game. Jester can ramp you a bunch of stuff for the other characters and survive and face tank, and you kind of don't have to quote unquote do anything with her, other than get momentum. And late game, getting to chain together harness after harness after harness is really, really strong. Um, when you have that big discard pile. But I think that starting with her is probably the most correct because the sort of the best way to just generate momentum for the team is the easiest way to generate momentum for the team. And the ability to sculpt spells for the other characters, I think is really, really good. I think it's really strong. You want to be setting up, inspiring songs early in the game. Like it's pretty worth it early on to spend a momentum to build not incredible display, to build an inspiring song. Spending one momentum to build a foundation that gives you +1 to a check and sets up your discard pile even more is worth one momentum most of the time, I think. So you don't have to stockpile everything, you know. Um, you don't have to like hoard your momentum, especially since again, like if Jester is starting things off, the little bit of momentum you spend can definitely be made up for with Annie and with rejuvenating smash and tension later. So don't be afraid to spend momentum to build break the spell. If you're playing against like an arrow goblin bolt deck, go get break the spell. Go put that card in your hand and then just hard play it. Like it's very, very solid stuff. Now that I'm looking at it, I kind of wish I had Desperate Plea in this deck. I feel like I'm missing Desperate Plea. Desperate Plea would be super sick because you could grab any of the spell cards. I mean, you could build the attacks face down, but you could build any of these spell foundations and then build them. But the deck's already really big, and we don't actually want a 4-check. 4-checks are kind of gnarly, so. But this is actually, I don't know. This is a deck that can compensate for the 4. I might have to add like one or two Desperate Pleas, just because you can go get break the spell, block with it, build it down with Desperate Plea, and then whatever foundation your rival sealed with Goblin Bolt earlier in the turn, you can now unseal. And there's going to be a lot more sealing happening. KOF Challenger. Other than that, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I already mentioned all the other synergies. If you're watching this later on YouTube, or if you're lurking in the chat and you have any questions, please let me know. Leave a comment on YouTube or ask me in the chat right now. But if not, I'm probably gonna move on to the next deck. Christmas Eve was not gonna be the most busy time to catch viewer games, but I figured I'd give it a shot because I'm just super stoked for the 3v3. I guess it's not really a format, but like the rule set, 3v3 rules. I don't know. I'm like super, super interested in deck building. So we're gonna talk about Team Mommy's Good Little Boy. And this is a good Earth symbol deck. So this one was Life Chaos. So everything is either Life or Chaos attuned for these three characters. This one is Earth Good. So this one I think is a little more strict. You can kind of fool around with the first two slots. Um but I think there's a pretty clear anchor here. And this is probably like not a great strategy specifically because you have to be ahead. And the first two characters don't have like a great way to really get you ahead as far as like taking characters go, but I'll explain what I'm trying to do here anyway. So this is only 62 cards this time. And one of them is the Fat Gum 2 because we're playing Fat Gum 1. And the idea here is to start as Mothra, the giant moth monster, and we're gonna hard mulligan for researching the answer. So if any of you remember the George Zhang Mothra deck, we're trying to do something very similar here. We're trying to get researching the answer out. We're trying to be a 9-hander as soon as possible. We're trying to turbo super duper build. And we have a lot of 2-ofs because we don't want multiples. Because we also have Momo Yayarozo, who is also just going to be there to ramp us foundations to get us basically to the Fat Gum 10, or was it Deadlock, as soon as possible. But this also lets us build like really specific non-uniques, really specific stuff that we might want, like an Always Cool, which we can destroy and then rebuild to use its defensive effect. Getting Keiko's aids and stuff like that. So we're running less copies of cards, but we should still stay pretty consistent. Um, Momo probably has the weakest offense in this, actually the weakest offense and defense in here. So maybe starting with her is fine, but I really don't think you want to pass up having the consistency of the 8-hand size, for early builds to see the researching the answer. But if you're going second, you might not be able to use the Mothra hand size for very long. So having Momo start things off is probably better, but they really nerfed Momo going second with the rule change that you can't commit your character card to pay the cost. So I think I'm always starting Mothra. And then we're trying to get enough singleton foundations out to get researching the answer to pop off. And then Momo plays pretty good with Canister Creation and Net Launcher. These cards kind of do what they need to do by themselves. You shouldn't need too much speed from Momo when you're playing Net Launcher. So it's not super strong, but this will let you get like the very specific pieces in play that you need. If your opponent's trying to debuild you, Momo can grab high value target or disciplinary action on command. And disciplinary action is incredibly good against debuild effects. Your rival makes you like ruin and you sacrifice a face down. Well, this lets you go build a face up. Now it does come in committed, but again, we're trying, for quantity macro plays in general, and the hyper specifics of targeted, build is just the cherry on top. So we've got quite a few cards that are going to build and ramp themselves. Like Spirit Beast Pooh when you block with it. Return of the Kings, when you block with it, you can spend a momentum. Uh, Always Cool can build you 2 face downs, which doesn't help for researching the answer, but it does help Fat Gum transform. So that could potentially be something you need to do. Yeah, and then daily training is just flip, build one of the many, many foundations from your hand. It doesn't even say non-unique. I keep forgetting daily training. You can build anything difficulty 3 or less, which includes researching the answer, which is pretty crazy. The daily training is a 4 of here because the name of the game is ramp. And then once we ramp, we get Fat Gum out. And hopefully Fat Gum comes out when you're at a one-on-one part of the game, because you're going to be risking it all here. So when Fat Gum comes in, you first form if you have 11 or more foundations or 10 or less health. You search all of your game zones for a copy of Fat Gum 2. You build it, and then when you build this, you get to draw 3 cards. And then you get twice per turn, discard a card, flip and commit 1 rival foundation, which is incredibly strong. And then he has enhanced, remove 2 foundations. This attack gets 1 speed and 3 damage, which used to be a lot more impressive, but with the amount of ramp that we're going to be getting from the first 2 characters, should be really, really good. That allows us to also play DMI Buster for the Fat Gum Breaker 2, which has a very strong action cancel ability. You know, actions are like pretty popular in almost every format now. Or every metagame, I should say. They're popular in every format for sure. But it did take a while for them to make good enough actions for like current stand. But removing 2 momentum to build 2 cards and draw 2 cards is absolutely huge. Keep the gas going. Invisible Infiltration lets you debuild something that got flipped or whatever, bring it back in ready, which is really, really strong. Unite in Battle says you have to block this or I'm going to draw a card and then build a foundation, which again just gets us closer to our goals. Cancer Creation Strike, you want to be removing 0 diffs to build 1 diffs you don't already have copies of most of the time. But it also spends momentum pretty good, you know, for a late game situation. You can spend a momentum to get basically +1 damage for each face up card in your stage a lot of the time. This includes your character, by the way. This attack gets 1 damage for each face up card with exactly 1 copy in your stage. So this starts with your character and then gets, you know, every foundation that works for researching the end, basically. So this is one of the few decks where spending a momentum on Cancer Creation Strike is actually one of your better damaging moves. And the Net Launcher is super duper big, but it has a really big cost. It's a cost that we can hopefully pay, but you know, it's our big dunk. You know, you get stun 2, you get a 7 mid for 11, so effectively like a 9 mid for 11. If you have Fat Gum stats on top of that, it's effectively like a 10 for 14. This Fat Gum. 10 for 14, and then you also commit a rival foundation again, so like 11 for 14. So pretty strong stuff. The Colossus's Thermal Blast is here for Mothra, of course. It also, I mean, this is something that, you know, both of these characters can play late in a game and add speed and mess with stuff. So if your rival overextends, commits all the way out, and you can land a Colossus's Thermal Blast, you know, you make them flip 5 and then ruin at least those 5 with the response on damage is really, really nice. So figured I gotta add this one in here for the Mothra tech, and then on top of that, it's a +0 mid with a 4 check, so I didn't feel too bad about it. Here's the real spice of the deck. The Meaning of Manly. This, I think, is going to be one of the best cards in this 3v3 format. Or at least it has maybe the biggest improvement from being like nearly unplayable to actually very playable, basically. But it's sad because it's also rotating with Godzilla, so it's really not going to be here for very long. In fact, it probably won't really be here for like any of the time that people end up playing this format. But after you take damage from an unblocked attack, you can add a Manly Spirit counter to this card, and then you can form commit your next attack with a printed difficulty equal to the number of Manly Spirit counters on this card passes with no check. So someday I'll say that the goal is to get 13 counters on here to play a Colossus Thermal Blast for free. But realistically, this is just because if you build this early in the game, as you lose your first 2 characters, by the time you get to your 3rd character, this should have 4 or 5 counters on it. You know, if your rival is killing you with less than, if he's killing multiple characters with less than 4 unblocked attacks, like I don't know what's, but getting, you know, 4 or 5 counters on this to play a Net Launcher for free at the end of a string seems really, really strong. Guaranteeing a BMI Buster check to build to and continue being aggressive to continue flowing seems really, really strong. Just the fact that you have 3 characters worth of health to be able to get counters from this seems really, really nice. Team Dr. Ichigaki's classic canceled. Drive Parry is a card I like a lot, and I'm going to start playing it more. I'm going to start forcing myself to play this. It'll cancel Moment of Normalcy, so it'll catch people off guard quite a bit. I kind of wish it canceled any ability on a foundation, but it is what it is. But a 0 mid that readies a foundation seems really tight. You can block and ready a Moment of Normalcy, which is thick. And it doesn't say that hasn't been readied yet before. So I think that's pretty solid, pretty important. I don't have too many ways to ready foundations, if any at all. Actually, like nice try raise on the rival's turn, so I can like commit for -2 and ready it, which isn't like super big of a deal, but you know, it's nice. It's mostly there just for the foundation cancel though. But definitely keep track of the fact that this is almost like a -1 block mod. Referee jury is just a super duper staple, damage reset, very strong stuff. Fear swings is our extra copies of the other two, and also more debuild hate if our rival is trying to keep us from getting to 8 to 10 foundations. Fear swings is almost certainly going to be able to help us out, and you currently can still do the Fear swings chain play, where your rival debuilds you and you respond Fear swings, and then you build disciplinary action, and then you respond disciplinary action to build probably the foundation that just got destroyed if you don't need it ready, right? So you can straight up, +1 off that kind of tandem play. And I'm excited to try it. I've tried it in a couple standard decks and like just hasn't come up. Debuild isn't like that super common. Extra cheese is in here in case we hit it off Fat Gum. This probably comes out, to be honest. But I figured it's pretty cool. Fat Gum can like add it to the discard pile with the enhanced commit, if we're not immediately first forming to transform. Because you do go down to 8, right? So Fat Gum is probably gonna have to build from 8 up to 11. And extra cheese is a great way to do that. So I got it in here. I don't know if it's going to stick around. I also can't sacrifice it, which is probably biggest liability of it. But yeah, I thought it'd be pretty cool to try and use extra cheese just in case we hit it off something super weird. Toughest Punk in junior high is to help with the manly spirit counters, trying to help us, base tank a little bit. It's a great card to build with Momo because Momo can use it and then rebuild it again because you don't have a copy anymore. Same thing with Keiko's Aid. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole deck. So you want to start almost always with Mothra, go into Momo, and then anchor with Fat Gum. And realistically, because of the 10 health on Fat Gum too, you probably want to be on your rival's last character when he comes in. But that's not always going to be the case. So you just got to play like some really active defense. If your stage can be like super, super big, if you can ramp up with all these extra effects and transform and kill the rival, but you did it with 1 or 2 really big attacks and you still manage to build out. Because don't forget, when you transform, you're going to draw 3 cards. You're going to be like a pseudo 8-hander plus any card draw, plus any hand advantage you get. So if you can immediately smoke an opponent and then build a stage back up, the 10 health shouldn't be too much of a liability, but you do have to be a little careful for that. If you want to play Fat Gum in the second slot and Momo in the third, that's not terrible either. Momo has, basically more specific win conditions that she has to play around rather than solid string offense. But the Fat Gum transformation to remove 2 foundations for speed and damage means you're almost certainly going to have to anchor. Almost always going to have to go last just because you chew up your foundation base so much to kind of get this off. But I still think the twice per turn enhance is so incredibly strong. I think that 1 speed and 3 damage is completely respectable. I mean, we saw plenty of characters be very viable, very playable in competitive play with stun 1, 3 damage. So I'm excited to see how that works out. But if you want to flip Momo and Mothra around, that's probably not too bad. And especially if you're going second, having Well, I guess it's only 7 extra health, but that's about one full attack's worth. So that can be really helpful. Unfortunately, there's no way to fast build turn one. Or Momo would definitely feel way, way better on like the point character going second arc. But it is what it is. I'm not trying to be super duper sweaty with these. I'm not trying to like have the perfect list or include every single staple I absolutely need to. But I think that these look really, really fun, and I'm really excited to try them out. Unfortunately, it is like the day before Christmas Eve. I did kind of spring this on people last minute. I was originally just gonna do like a deck build stream and just kind of talk about it, but I figured I'd really like to play these, so I put out the if anyone wants to do a viewer game post, but I don't think it's gonna happen, unfortunately. But I'm glad I got these out here. I can upload this to YouTube and feel totally fine about it as like a double deck profile. In fact, I think I can public the stream from yesterday. Oh, I already did. I already got comment on. Hey yo. Friday nights is dope. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna probably cut the stream here. It's been about an hour. Thank you for hanging out if you hung out live. If you're watching this on YouTube, definitely like, share, subscribe. Hopefully we get some 3v3 games going in the future. I'm probably gonna keep talking about it, making content on it, making deck profiles for people, give them some ideas. Because it can be pretty daunting. I do think the deck building restrictions that the deck has to be legal for all the characters is really, really annoying. I don't know if there's a better way to do it, and I understand that, like, saying, well, you can play all the attuned symbols from all the characters on the team means you'd have to, like, fucking ban Deku. Wait, that's a good idea. Anyways, the attune, doing like an attune symbol in like a weird way thing, probably not like super easy, and they want this to stay casual. But at the same time, it does feel like with the way attuned works and all these one symbol cards, it really makes me wish that we still just had the standard 3 symbol design. Because I think it'd be a lot easier to find a team where like all the cards are, like air and water, and then you could play an air character and a water character, and they don't have to both have air and water. Does that make sense? Like if you had a team where every character on it had, like it was like 2 air characters that don't have water, and then a water character doesn't have air. You'd play like all 60 air water cards, and it would be legal for both of them, but you can't really find that. So they basically have to be single symbol decks, or the attuned has, or they all have to share 2 symbols, which not super hard for Attack on Titan characters because they only have 6 symbols to work with. But so far right now, it's been kind of restricting my choices in deck building. So we'll see how it goes. This would be really, really cool if this took off as like a retro thing too. I think with retro, it of course adds all the complexities and issues of getting people into it, but it greatly expands the availability of characters with like the same symbol or the same symbol combinations. Especially for like a death life character, like holy shit, you just have like so many ways you could build your deck from there. But I digress. Hopefully you guys had fun watching this. I had fun making these decks. I can't wait to play them. I'm a little sad we didn't get to today, but it's not the end of the world. It was a long shot to try and get people playing games at like potentially 10 o'clock at night on the East Coast. So that's just the time that I get to stream. PM is when I get free most days. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Hopefully you guys are having a great holiday. Hopefully you're enjoying the days of Acemas. And while we didn't get any gameplay today, a double deck profile for 3v3 should hopefully tide you over till tomorrow, when we've got the 11th day of Acemas. I got 2 more videos coming out for you back to back. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.